Guys, welcome to Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Coach Red Pill used to have about 300,000 subscribers here on YouTube as a men's content creator. A lot of people didn't like his takes. A lot of people did. Anyway, Gonzalo and I did almost a 2-hour, hour and a half interview with him over on my betterbachelor.locals.com channel about what's going on overseas during the conflict. And we had I'd say about a 90-minute interview. Interesting guy. I like his takes on things insofar as it's different from many others that are in that area. Well, he's been arrested by the SBU for Russian propaganda. It was likely to happen. He had gotten a warning before. I did a video on how he was missing for a week, and they'd taken his phone and scrubbed his social media accounts, and he probably would have been best to leave the country, but he decided to stay and continue to give what he felt was accurate reporting on the conflict over there, and now the SBU has come to get him. Before I dive into this story, couple updates. I think my dog Walker here has a little bit of arthritis, and so he gets sore and he gets uncomfortable and he whines a little bit, and so when if you hear him in the background, I'm going to just leave him here. I'm not going to kick him out into another room and make him uncomfortable just so I can have a little bit cleaner audio recording. He lays next to me, and I think he's about 11 years old now. So, he's getting up there in the age, and I want to take care of him. So if you hear him in the background, I apologize for that, but he's going to be here next to my side. Also, Saturday night at the movies, tonight, we're going to be doing The Equalizer and Book of Eli. You'll be able to watch the movie. You can hear like 80% or 20% of it. I talk over it. But it's when I do my live chats. We do discussions. We share memes in the sidebar. And the movie's just kind of there to goof at and make comments on when we don't have anything else to talk about. It's a lot of fun. We have 250, almost 300 guys over there sharing stuff. It's free to do so please come over today. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, Paul Stanley just blocked me the other day because I called him a weak man. But what's nice about this is he actually paid attention enough to block me. So if you want to follow me over, it's at Bachelor Joker. I'll be talking about this story actually at the end a little bit more for my locals guys, because this is kind of interesting and there's something I want to talk about related to this. So Gonzo Liro, this comes from a Ukrainian post here, it looks like. It says, in Kharkiv, the SBU detained a foreign blogger who glorified the crimes of Russians in Ukraine, which I don't believe is accurate because I talked to him. It denied the facts of rocket attacks on Ukrainian cities, and in the spring of 2022, he shot provocative videos in which he tried to record the faces of Ukrainian defenders and insulted them. Now, this is from somebody that is very pro-Ukraine, very anti-Russia, obviously, and I don't think that's an accurate assessment. Again, I talked to Coach. His thoughts on this, and I'm not going to get all into the politics and all that stuff of it, but his thoughts were, back in 2014, 15, 16, whenever it was, NATO kept expanding its borders, and Russia said, if you expand any further, we will treat this as provocation. And NATO did. And Russia said, okay, then I'm going to respond. That's kind of where all this kicked off, and then the media has been on its hype ever since, on both sides. So again, I'm not saying anybody, I'm not getting into all that stuff. Here's what Coach was saying as their example of why he was arrested.
Vladimir Putin, he is, for all intents and purposes, what you would call an ethnic nationalist, but he's not an imperialist. The Kiev regime, I'm telling you right now. These people are neo-fascist, neo-Nazis. The West is the one puppeteering Zelensky, right? The Kiev regime also constantly shelling the regions of the Donbass. 16,000 people died after 2015 up until the start of this conflict. 1,000 children or 800 children were killed.
A few moments later.
Now I'm going to just pause it here for a second. And again, this is, I would say much of what he says is debatable, but it's certainly not something that's floated around in the news. And if you look at the news before the conflict, the Western world had a very, very big difference on Ukraine. And they flipped almost the moment that we decided to get into this conflict after Russia jumped in. So, the media did a 180. And what he's talking about is what the media said before the most recent, I guess you'd call it invasion. And he's just pointing that out. And I think that's fair to do, but you have to remember, he's not in an area, number one, where there's free speech. Number two, up until 2016 or 2015, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, all the mainstream channels here in the West called Ukraine one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Now, whether you agree or disagree with that, that's not my point. I'm just saying the news said this. And so when he's relating back to that kind of thing and he's talking about what happened, well, Ukraine didn't take too kindly to that. Okay, this has cringe music playing over top of it, so I've got to pull that down. I apologize. And here you can see the SBU units, all in full military gear. There's like 8 or 10 of them. So obviously there's a very strong show of force. They're pounding on his door, and they've got a weapon aimed right at him. Now, in this video, they blurred his face, but I do have the video or an image without his face being blurred. And you can see he's been given some paperwork, and yeah, he's getting cuffed and stuffed and searched. They go around his apartment, and I'll be honest with you, it's a very small, dirty apartment. I don't think he lives with his wife and kids anymore. They may have either left the country because of the conflict. He certainly doesn't keep a tidy place, I will say that much. But here's the problem. Now, again, you have to understand. Now, these could be his books. I'm not going to argue with that. However, do you notice how neatly they're stacked, and the rest of his place is very messy? And I can't tell, but none of these pages, and again, this is just my opinion. You can call me wrong or whatever, but there doesn't look to be any creases in the binders of the books, and none of these pages have any wrinkles or pulls or bookmarks or anything. They look like brand new books, but they're books that show, Putin and yeah, they're just going through everything, and they go through his web browser and his pages. He signs some paperwork, and he puts on his jacket, and off he goes. Now, you can see here I have this. This is from Dylan Burns. And these are very pro-Ukrainian. Obviously, you can see the flag in the bio. So take this with a grain of salt. Again, I'm just trying to pass the information as I find it. The SBU has detained Gonzalo Lira, a.k.a. Coach Red Pill, in Kharkiv under Article 2 and 3, Section 436-2 of the Ukrainian Criminal Code. In layman's terms, it has been arrested for disseminating Russian propaganda and calling for attacks upon Ukraine, which is, again, he's never said any of that. So, that's not true, but, or at least as far as I know, on social media and in our interview, he never said anything like that. And then this morning, this came out, and this is sometimes, I've been sitting on this story for about, 18 hours, because sometimes I want to say, hey, let's get an actual news agency, not that they're more credible than anybody else, but let's get an actual news agency to come out and say something on this. They say pro-Russian blogger, which again, I do not feel that's accurate. Gonzalo Lira detained in Kharkiv. I don't think he was pro-Russia, or he was just critical of Ukraine. I can be critical of somebody without being pro the other side. I mean, I just think that's very simple. According to the investigation, the man is a citizen of Latin American country, but has lived in Kharkiv for several years. Law enforcement authorities accuse him of supporting Russian occupation and valorizing Moscow's apparent war crimes during the war. Additionally, he's said to have engaged in attempts to discredit Ukraine's highest military and political leadership. And again, you can't do that in a lot of countries. In spring 2022, he filmed provocative videos showing the faces of Ukrainian soldiers and insulting the country's defenders. Now, you notice this sounds an awful lot. It sounds an awful lot like what this blogger wrote it. That wasn't even English. I apologize. It sounds an awful lot like what this person here wrote with 5,000 followers. So it sounds very similar. I mean, this article almost sounds the same as the last tweet I read you, which is very interesting. They say he posted videos on YouTube and Twitter where he has nearly 300,000 followers. The SBU has accused him of denying the facts of Russian missile strikes on Ukrainian cities and the mass killings of civilians by the invading forces. So again, it's this is tough. I don't with this what's going on. I don't have enough news to even have an opinion on this stuff. I just don't. I know there's so much crazy news from each side, and both sides are, including the West, including everybody else, is doing some sort of, flag campaigns and smear campaigns. I don't even know what's true anymore. During a search of his possessions, law enforcement found mobile phones and a computer that contained evidence of his illegal activity, which again could be going to the wrong websites. He's been remanded in custody by the court, and the investigation is ongoing. So it sounds like they pretty much, just reiterate what that Twitter post said. So I don't know what's going on, but in other areas they have said, or in other posts they have said, the minimum terms for this kind of thing are like 2 to 5 years of hard labor, up to 8 years imprisonment. Since this is the second time that SBU has visited him, and the first time they wiped his social media accounts and took his phone and computer, I don't think there's going to be any leniency for Coach here. And there's two ways you can look at it. Either A, he's stupid for staying, or if he couldn't leave, he's stupid for speaking up and he just should have shut his mouth. Or there's the other side, that you may say, hey, you know what? At least someone's over there trying to say what he thinks is the truth of the situation, as somebody that is not Ukrainian, but is in Ukraine, trying to say what he feels is going on. You could look at it either way. Either way, I think this may be the last we see of Coach for a very long time, if not forever, depending on what they decide to do. I hope he stays safe and well. But again, you have to choose your battles. Do you stick your neck out? And if it's the only neck, it's probably going to get noticed and lopped off. Or do you kind of turtle up and stay in your shell and be quiet until there's enough voices that can speak out against something, that your voice can form a choir, and that choir is strong enough to be heard without individual necks being lopped off? I don't have that answer. I don't know, but I think it depends on the time and the place and the fight and what the situation is and where you are. So I will leave it there for those of you on YouTube and Rumble. I'm going to jump over to Locals, do a dating profile of the day, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about Paul Stanley and why weak men make bad times.